I'm Sri Banerjee, and in this video I'll be going over the visibility in the morning sky. So in this slide we're showing how Saturn and Venus and Mars will be rising in the same general direction in the southeast part of the horizon right before sunrise on March 28th. So this is a beautiful view of the planet Venus, and there's some interesting facts about Venus. First of all, a day on Venus is longer than a year on Earth. So it takes Venus basically longer to rotate once on its axis than to complete one orbit of the Sun. What does that translate to? Well, that means that one Venus day is actually 243 Earth days. So imagine that. And then, despite popular belief, Venus is actually hotter than Mercury. Even though Mercury is physically closer to the Sun. And then another fun and interesting fact is that unlike the other planets, Venus actually spins clockwise on its axis. Most planets, including Earth, is actually spinning anti-clockwise. And then finally, Venus is actually the second brightest natural object in the night sky after the Moon. Mars, on the contrary, represents more of the masculine aspect. And you can see Mars, of course, traditionally from the night sky. You see it's more of a red planet. And you can see that this is actually a closer optical sort of picture of the planet Mars. And then this is actually a rover view of the planet close-up. So this was taken about a year ago on May 11th. And as you can see from this close-up picture, there's a really good level of granularity of the Martian surface. So this is really interesting to take a look at, because honestly, even 50 years ago, it was unthinkable to be able to go on the surface of a planetary body. And we were actually able to achieve this through an unmanned method very easily. So the next planetary body, of course, is Saturn. And you can see the rings on Saturn, and it's just majestic close up. And so just take a moment to appreciate this gas giant. The reason I combined the pictures of Saturn and Mars and Venus is because these are the planetary bodies that you're going to be seeing within the morning sky. And Saturn actually represents a more sort of stabilizing factor. It's a cooling planet. So now, thinking in astrological terms and times during which Saturn and Jupiter come together, they form something called a great conjunction. And this happens not very common in astrological terms. It actually happens quite rarely, every 20 years. So every 20 years, Jupiter and Saturn form something called a great conjunction. And this happens in patterns and cycles. And actually, the great physicist Johann Kepler, I'm going to go over this in a subsequent slide, called this pattern in the heavens, which actually takes place every 60 years,
the Great Trigon, or the Great Triangle. And the reason is this. So every 20 years, the planets come together. So if we think about some numbers here, so I'm going to designate Jupiter with the Roman sign. So Jupiter makes a revolution every 12 years around the 360 degrees. Saturn, on the other hand, makes a revolution every 29 years. So when Saturn has traveled 1/3 of the way around the astrological chart, and Jupiter has traveled 2/3 of the way, this roughly equates to 20 years. So then, where does the 60 in Vedic astrology come from? So the 60 is the Brihaspati chakra, or the Samvatsara chakra. So each year is designated to a Jovian year. So after 60 years, this goes back to the same sign it started. So if it starts in Sagittarius, then after 60 years, we'll go back to Sagittarius, the conjunction. And so if you take this and then this further goes into cycles, and if you multiply this, then there's further cycles to be described.
So in this triangle generated by the great astronomer and physicist Johann Kepler, this shows a period of 20 years during which the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction took place in various astrological signs. So if you look over here, the first one we can focus on here is in Sagittarius, and there's a group of 3 astrological.
So the new moon that I'm showing here is on April the 1st, and it's taking place on 2:24 Eastern Time, and the ascendant is in Capricorn. And quickly just going through some of the signs, some of the aspects that are going on, taking place, the Mars, Venus, Saturn conjunction, which is trine the midheaven, is really important, and the midheaven is in Libra, so that is bringing some stability and balance to everything. And then of course in the 4th house, aspecting the 4th house, is the Sun, Moon, Mercury. So those are the 2 areas to be paying attention to. So I'm going to mark those areas. So right here is the Mars, Venus, Saturn conjunction that I told you about, and the trine that is taking place with the midheaven. And that goes back to some of the aspects that I was describing to you earlier in the video. And then also focusing on the Sun, Moon, and Mercury. That is aspecting the midheaven further. And these are all in Aries. So stability will be the central theme, because also Capricorn is on the ascendant, whose ruling planet is Saturn as well. So it's always good to have a trine with the midheaven, with the ruling planet of the ascendant. So these are some of the main aspects to be thinking about. Also, the ruling planet for the moon is Mars. So thank you for listening.